no, I'm a megalomaniac and an egomaniac, and I've always expected utter global domination to arrive at my feet. So the only thing that puzzled me was that it took so long to come true. My kind of ideal experience for the reader, if you like, is to laugh all the way through the story, and then at the end go, what in the name of hell were we laughing at there? I mean, it's very important for me as a writer to take risks and not to just find a formula that works for my books and keep going with that, but to chance things and take risks. And sometimes you know that the story is going to fall out of your hands and smash on the floor, but try it and see what happens. And in that way, it keeps it interesting for me as well. I don't want to get bored. There's an odd thing you discover when you've been writing fiction all the time for a while, and I've been at it quite a while now, and it becomes less the thing you do and more the thing you are. And it sounds vaguely disgusting, but it becomes like a bodily function. When you get up you don't feel good about yourself if you don't do it. So I go to the desk 7 days a week, and I'm there for 3 or 4 more hours every morning. In the average week, there's only 1 or 2 days where it'll seem like it's going well, where there's a sense of flow. But you realise that you have to be there for the slow days where you're slamming your head off the wall to make the good ones, because so much of writing burbles in the subconscious. It comes from the back of the mind. So you kind of make this pact with yourself that you're going to be there and you're going to be available if it sends you anything, if it sends you stories and ideas. I enjoy reading the work a lot. I'm kind of a frustrated actor, and it's actually a really important part of my craft in writing as well. I will read the stuff out aloud, and I will act it out all the time, because I always think that the ear will pick up the false notes in your work quicker than the eye will. It's a really useful tool for the writer. So it might look and sound a bit crazed to a casual observer as I pace up and down the room screaming and roaring and doing all the voices, but it works for me to operate in that way.
Maurice Hearn and Charlie Redmond sit on a bench a few yards west of the hatch. They're in their low 50s. The years are rolling out like tide now. There's old weather on their faces, on the hard lines of their jaws, on their chaotic mouths, but they retain just about a rakish air. Now, in precise tandem, they turn their faces to the hatch marked Information. You want to hop back there, Charlie, have another word, see about this next boat that's due in? Yeah, but the same lad is still on, Maurice, the lad with the bitter face on him. He's not a talker, Moss. Try him, Charlie. Charlie Redmond rises up from the bench in a bundle of sighs. He unfolds his long bones, approaches the hatch. He's lame. He drags the right peg in a soft, brushing motion with practiced ease. Throws his elbows onto the counter. His aura is of brassy menace. He wears a corner boy's grimace. His Spanish pronunciation is very much from the north side of Cork City. Hola y buenos noches, he says. Waits it out for a long beat, looks over his shoulder, calls back to Maurice. No response, Moss. Bitter face on him still. Maurice shakes his head sadly. I fucking hate ignorance, he says. Charlie tries again. Hola? Excuse me, trying to find out about this next boat coming in, this boat from Tangier, or going out. Silence, a gesture. Charlie looks back to his friend and mimics the Informacionistas shrug. All I'm getting here is the shoulders, Maurice. Habla inglés is what you say to him, Charlie. But Charlie throws up his hands and shuffles back to the bench. Habla my hole, he says. All he's doing is give me the shoulders, give me the eyes. Facing him like a bad marriage, Maurice says. Now he turns sharply and screeches at the hatch. Lose the fucking face! And now humorously grins. And so we're off with Boris and Charlie. Our two fading gangsters from the city of Cork.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. It's always lovely to hear you read your own work. That relationship, the key relationship between Charlie and Maurice, like at one point he refers to him as his oldest friend and his oldest rival. I suppose they have a complicated relationship in ways, but there's a fierce loyalty or a bond between them, isn't there, in the book? It's interesting to see how that unravels.
Yeah, what I like when you finish a novel, anything you've written, at first you kind of see what's wrong with it, and then after a while it's passed, you see what you like about it. And kind of what I like about it now, it's a couple of years since I finished it, of course. The paperback is just out. But what I like about it is how much it kind of doesn't tell us, really. It doesn't go into too much detail about their criminal history as such. We get kind of broad strokes, and about their kind of their rivalry and love at one point with Morris's late wife. So it tells us just enough, I think, to keep the reader going through it. They're an interesting pair for me, Morris and Charlie, because they were hanging around a long while in the shed out the back here where I work. They kept showing up, and they were trying to break into short stories, and that wasn't working out at all. They would kind of immediately destroy the short story. They're very big characters, they're large, they talk a lot, and I decided I had to give them their own story and find out who they were. Yeah, it's funny. I think often the best research you do for a novel is you don't realize it's research at the time. And for about since late 90s, I think since 1999, most winters I've escaped to Spain for a few weeks or a few months sometimes. I've always gone there. I've always gone to the south of Spain just to get a blast of light in the winter when it's dark and grey and wet and awful in the Sligo Hills. I head south. I make a jailbreak. And over the last few years, then I was kind of asking myself, where's my Spain book? Where's my Spain novel? I had all the texture from knowing the place quite well. And I couldn't figure out how to do it until one day I had the thought of, what about my two Cork gangsters? What if I just put them down in Spain? We'd be away in a hack. And it's funny, it's when characters and setting click together for you, that's when you know you have a book. That's when you know you have a novel. And as soon as I put Morris and Charlie in the gloriously kind of seedy ferry terminal down in Algeciras, I heard that kind of click, and I thought, okay, I have my kind of stage now for it, and I can.
They talk a lot. They talk a great deal, but in the way of Irish people, sometimes they're not saying very much, and you have to kind of dig underneath the surface of the talk to find out what's going on really here. And it's a book, I think, that the tone shifts quite radically in the second half. When Cynthia, Morris's ex-wife, and the missing girl Dilly come into the story more, it kind of tethers it to the real world, I think, more when they come in. It's funny, sometimes I talked about tuning forks earlier. Sometimes you work at something on a morning and you write a little scene and it kind of gives you the book. And I remember one morning writing a very simple, odd little scene where the two women, Cynthia and Dilly, are just talking, and Dilly asks her mother, did you ever see them violent? Did you ever see them actually violent? And Cynthia says, yeah, I did once, and it's a kind of nothing little scene really, but it just, when I was writing it, I heard that kind of clean, kind of ringing tone. And I thought, that's it. The book is kind of coming to life now. It's becoming a real thing. It's becoming a story. And it's funny, sometimes it's just a sentence or two or a paragraph or a little scene, but it kind of gives you the whole lot. You hit on the kind of, I think the novel is a disappointed musical form in a sense. All other art forms aspire to be music. But every story has its own inherent melody or tune in there sometimes. And you're just trying to kind of hear it and proceed sentence by sentence then on that level. Yeah, it's strange actually. I'm usually a morning writer. I mean, I usually go to the desk first thing, and before I'm kind of properly awake even, because I strongly believe in that like subconscious dreamy place you're trying to get there when you're still barely out of it, when you're still barely awake. But with this book, because Morris and Charlie were so very kind of insistent and loud in my head, I found I was sleeping really badly when I was writing the novel. I was like not just sleeping badly, but like sleeping hardly at all, like an hour and a half a night. And it definitely gave the book a real nocturnal flavor, I think. And it's I sometimes think writers get a bit stuck in their ways with their practice. Like I have a lot of friends who are visual artists, and I notice they're inclined to mix up the way they work much more and try different things. And it's like you're a very different writer at 4 a.m. than you are at 10 a.m. And it was really interesting to bring that into it, to bring that kind of nocturnal atmosphere in. it's an amazement to me always how good we are at storytelling when we're dreaming. We can all do it, you know. These scenes naturally present themselves, and the dialogue is unimprovable, and they have their own coherent dream kind of logic going through. And then we wake up in the morning and we can't do it, you know. And it's trying to stay in that place is a fundamental part of the whole kind of process for me. What I find as well though is you know, showing up is so much of the work. Like, and I will kind of go to the desk most days of the week. Really, I'll show up for a few hours for 7 days a week, and it's kind of, you know, it seems to be going well for me. Maybe 1 day a week, maybe two. You know, most days feel pretty slow and sludgy, and I have a lot of what I call not nothing days. Like at the end of the day, I look down and go, well, you know, it's not nothing. You know, it's like, you know, 200 words that look kind of all right, and you do that for a year, and you kind of have to have a draft of a novel or something. About my work, you know, I'm just going in there and making my worlds, and of course, you know, Ireland is in every sentence and phrase I write, but it's not on a conscious level, really, you know, and it's important that you don't try and just up it and play it up in any way.